She was invited as a guest. But as soon as it turned dark, she was subjected to the most horrific torture by her friends. They considered her to be weak, but it was their last mistake that would eventually cost them their lives. Welcome back to Paramount Recapped. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. So, things kick off with this guy doing something awful to a girl while her boyfriend's not around. When she tries to make a break for it, all hell breaks loose. Her boyfriend and his gang come chasing after her like wild dogs. She runs until she ends up at a cliff, nowhere else to go. Scared out of her mind, she stops. Her boyfriend catches up, acts all sweet and comforting for a moment, like he's trying to calm her down. But just when she starts to let her guard down, bam, he shoves her right off the edge. She falls, and her body crashes into a tree branch below, impaling her like something out of a nightmare. Now, before all that mess happens, we're introduced to the desert setting. We're talking wide open sand plains with rocky mountains towering in the background, a perfect setup for some serious hunting business. Not long after, a chopper shows up, slicing through the sky and carrying two people, Richard and his girlfriend Jennifer. They're heading out to Richard's isolated spot in the desert, a house tucked away in the middle of nowhere. He's planning to spend some private time with Jen before his annual hunt with the boys. Right before the helicopter lifts off, the pilot hands Richard a little party favor, a packet of peyote, the kind of stuff that hits your brain like a freight train. The plan is for him and his buddies to have a trippy time later on. So, Richard and Jen finally land and make it inside the house. She's got this magnetic, head-turning vibe, and Richard can't resist. It doesn't take long before things heat up between them, and they end up going at it passionately in the bedroom. Later that day, Richard gets a call from someone unexpected, his wife. Yep, turns out he's got a whole family back home. He talks to her like everything's fine, just pretending he's off in the desert doing his usual hunting routine. The next morning, Jen, still in her underwear, walks into the kitchen to grab a drink, only to get a surprise of her own. Richard's hunting buddies, Stan and Dimitri, show up a day early, and Richard is visibly ticked off. He wasn't planning on letting them in on his affair, but with them already at the house, he just rolls with it. During the introductions, Stan is clearly more than a little curious about Jennifer. You can see it in his eyes. He's way too interested. That night, the group chills by the pool, soaking up the desert vibes. Dimitri spends most of the time goofing off with a pair of binoculars before getting curious about the gift Richard got from the pilot. Richard laughs and tells them about the peyote, claiming it's strong enough to knock out a football team, even sharing a disturbing story of someone sawing off their leg while high and not feeling a thing. Not wanting the drug to become a problem, Richard tells Jen to stash it away somewhere safe. But Jen, clearly intrigued, hides it in her necklace instead. She heads back outside and starts dancing, putting on a seductive show that keeps all the guys glued to her. Stan, in particular, is hooked. He gets so into it that when she invites him to dance with her, he's more than happy to join in. The next morning, Stan's still feeling the high from the night before and tries to cozy up to Jen over breakfast. Richard isn't around, so Stan sees this as a chance. But Jen brushes him off like he's nothing, walks straight back to her room, not even looking twice. Stan, not taking the hint, follows her. When she rejects him again, this time saying he's not her type and takes a jab at his height, he doesn't take it well. The guy's ego is bruised, and instead of walking away, he does the worst thing imaginable. Jen, terrified and overwhelmed, is assaulted. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, Dimitri walks in, sees what's going on, and instead of doing something, just leaves. He turns up the TV to drown out her cries and stays out of it. Hours later, Richard comes back and immediately senses that something's off. The air is thick, and his buddies are way too quiet. Stan casually tells him there was a bit of a situation with Jen, but leaves it at that. When Richard checks on her, he sees she's in pieces, crying, shaken, completely broken. She begs to go home, wants a chopper called ASAP. Richard realizes what his friends did, but instead of going full protective mode, he offers her hush money and says they'll apologize. She's had enough. Jen tells him that if he doesn't get her out of there, she's going to spill everything to his wife. That's when Richard snaps. He tries to keep his cool, but ends up scaring her, and she bolts out of the house. As she runs, Stan and Dimitri join Richard in chasing her. She makes it to the edge of a cliff, cornered. Richard, acting like he regrets everything, calls the pilot and tells Jen he's getting her out of there. She starts to calm down, thinking maybe she's finally going home. But just when it looks like things might turn around, Richard shoves her off the cliff. Her body crashes down and gets impaled on a tree. Stan and Dimitri are shaken. They didn't think he'd actually do it. Richard tells them if they'd let her go, they'd all be facing jail time and his secret would be out. So now they've got blood on their hands, and they head back to the house to gear up, planning to clean the whole mess up later like it never happened. But here's the wild twist. Jen's not dead. Turns out that tree didn't hit anything vital. She's still breathing, though badly hurt and stuck. Ants start swarming around her, and she's in agony. But Jen spots her lighter nearby, and somehow manages to reach it. With what little strength she's got left, she lights the shrub she's caught on fire. It burns and breaks, helping her get free, though the branch is still stuck in her side. Meanwhile, Richard and his guys are on the way to find her body and cover it all up. Jen, hearing their vehicle coming, pulls herself out of sight just in time. When they arrive and see she's gone, panic sets in. They don't know if someone saved her or if she crawled off on her own. Either way, they start hunting her down, trying to find a way to the bottom of the cliff. Jen, meanwhile, is dragging herself away from the area, losing blood but refusing to give up. She can hear them shouting and searching. At one point, she hides underwater to stay out of sight. Dimitri drives by on his quad, scanning the area, but finds nothing. Eventually, Jen spots Dimitri again. He's nearby, and he's left his rifle resting next to the vehicle. She sees an opening and moves toward it. When she gets close, Dimitri realizes what's happening and plays it cool. But as she grabs the gun and points it at him, she discovers it's empty. He had set it there on purpose, knowing she might go for it. Dimitri wastes no time hitting up his two buddies to let them know what's going on. But before handing Jen over, he decides he's going to mess with her first. Big mistake. Jen, barely holding on, manages to swipe a knife from his pocket. In a wild move, she turns the tables and stabs him. Hard. He doesn't make it. Just like that, his body floats lifeless in the lake while Jen takes off with his gear and whatever else she can carry. But her escape doesn't go as far as she hoped. The ride she's using sputters out of fuel, leaving her stranded in the middle of nowhere. Still dragging that nasty branch in her side, she has no choice but to move forward on foot. After pushing herself through the dry terrain, she comes across a cave and decides to crawl inside for a breather. It's not much, but it gives her a minute to rest. Her body's wrecked though, too beat up to treat properly. As she lays there, trying to deal with the pain, her eyes fall on the necklace she's still wearing. That's when it hits her. She remembers she hid some serious drugs in it. That hallucinogenic stuff Richard bragged about. And right now, she needs something, anything, to numb the pain and get her through this nightmare. Without giving a second thought, she pops the drugs into her mouth, grimacing at the horrible taste. Moments later, weird stuff starts happening. Her head spins, voices creep in, the whole world warps around her. The drug kicks in hard, throwing her into a trippy haze where everything's distorted. But through that strange fog, she somehow finds clarity. She pulls together whatever focus she has left and starts cleaning her wound. Now fully numb, she cuts open her skin, dead calm, as if it's nothing. Not a wince, not a flinch. She pulls out the massive branch, heats up a tin can over a flame, and presses it straight onto the open wound, sealing it shut. The next morning, things shift. Stan's still passed out in the Jeep. Richard's back from his failed search for Jen, tossing some dead animal around like a consolation prize. They still have no clue that Dimitri is floating face down in a lake nearby. Stan finally wakes up, wanders down to the water to freshen up, and bam, there's Dimitri's body staring back at him. He's stunned, doesn't even scream. You can see the fury brewing beneath the surface, but he keeps it in, already blaming Jen for what happened. With no real plan, they quietly dump Dimitri's body back in the lake like it's nothing. Richard, furious, lays in a stand, blaming him for not backing up Dimitri and hiding in the car instead. But they can't dwell on it long. They've still got Jen to deal with. Back in the cave, Jen's starting to come around. The hallucinations fade, and reality smacks her in the face. That entire healing session from earlier? Turns out it was part hallucination, part real. But either way, she's better than before. She finds a piece of a beer can, cuts out the bird logo from it, and takes it as a symbol of survival. Grabbing her weapon, she gets up with a new mission. She's not just running anymore. Meanwhile, Richard and Stan are trying to pick up her trail. They spot the quad bike she used and decide to split up. Richard heads one way, and Stan, nursing an aching nose, checks his reflection in a mirror. What he doesn't realize is that the glare off the mirror gives away his position. Jen spots it instantly. Wounded and barefoot, she starts creeping towards Stan. She's hurting, sure, but she's not stopping. Stan's ride starts running low on gas, slowing him down. Jen gets into position, aims her scoped rifle. First time she's ever done it, but she's determined. She takes a shot. It hits, but just barely clips his shoulder. He screams in pain, then vanishes from her view. Jen follows the blood trail he leaves behind, trying to catch up. Stan, meanwhile, uses whatever he can, a sock, in this case, to tie off the bleeding. But soon, the trail runs cold, and all she finds is one of his shoes stashed in the dirt. Turns out Stan is trying to ambush her. He's loaded his weapon, waiting in silence. He's a mess, though. His arm is messed up from the shot, and it's throwing off his aim. When he fires, it just grazes Jen's ear. Bleeding and disoriented, Jen sprints away, using a broken torch glass to defend herself. It actually works. The shards tear into Stan's feet, leaving him limping and bloody. He pulls them out one by one, swearing and gritting his teeth. Running's no longer an option, so he limps back to the car, ready to drive with whatever energy he's got left. But Jen finally catches up, and she ends him. She kills the guy who assaulted her, finishing what she started. As she's catching her breath, the walkie-talkie crackles to life. It's Richard's voice on the other end, calling for Stan. That voice, so calm, so fake, fires Jen up again. The memory of what he did still burns in her head. Richard's losing it now. He hasn't heard from Stan and assumes the worst. He decides to head back to the house, exhausted and overwhelmed. He figures it's time to escape this whole mess. Plans to call the pilot and get airlifted out ASAP. He cleans himself up, ready to leave, when he hears a weird noise. Completely naked, he starts checking around the house. At first, nothing seems off, but then, click, the TV turns on. And just like that, he knows. Jen's here. The final showdown kicks off with Jen pointing a shotgun straight at him. She fires, landing a hit right in his stomach. He panics, but grabs a gun and tries to get away. Bleeding and wobbling, he stumbles through the house while Jen gives chase. But she slips, blood on the floor, throws her off balance. That slip gives Richard enough time to set a trap. He waits in the shadows, planning to take her down. But he's leaking blood fast, and it gives away his hiding spot. Jen sees it, circles around, and comes at him from another angle. He tries to patch up the wound with a food wrapper, but he's fading. Fast, Jen tracks him to the final room. He's weak. She's weak, but she's still standing. And with one last burst of rage and power, she lifts the rifle, aims right at his wound, and pulls the trigger. The shot echoes. Richard drops. And just like that, it's over. All three men who tried to break her spirit, her body, her life, they're gone. Jen, soaked in blood, walks out of that house not as a victim, but as someone who fought her way through hell and survived. She steps into the open desert, every step a reminder of what she's been through. Then, off in the distance, she hears it, the whirring blades of a helicopter. She turns, ready for whatever comes next. Thanks for hanging out. If you're new around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more action-packed movie recaps. Catch you in the next one.